So every year, Sioux Pride Alliance has a service around the time of the Transgender Day of Remembrance. And so this year, we're remembering an awful lot of folks that passed away. Amanda, could I get you to get a lighter? We have candles over there.
Yes.
And put them up on, nope, not those candles. Yeah. Look over here. Okay. And generally just put them on the piano because you're going to be using all of them. All right. So the first person, Tiana Davaria Alexander, 28, of Chicago, was shot to death on January 6th when a passing car fired on her as she was just walking down the street. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Tiana was a loving person who everyone enjoyed being around. She loved to dance and had a great sense of humor, enjoyed life when she could, and just wanted to be able to vibe and thrive. Samuel Edmund Damian Valentini was found dead on a highway in Trujillo Alto, Puerto Rico on January 9th. A driver hit what they thought was an object on the road, stopped, and then realized they had hit a person who was already dead. Samuel had been shot several times, and he was misgendered in initial reports. Bianca Muffin Banks, 30, was fatally shot in her apartment in Atlanta, Georgia on January 17th. The police believe that her killer then took their own life. Their bodies were discovered by Muffin's roommate, with whom she'd often lived on the streets. And Muffin had moved into the apartment just a few weeks before she died. Muffin got her nickname because she loved blueberry muffins. And she hoped one day to compete on RuPaul's Drag Race. She was called a very sweet and kind person. Dominique Jackson, 30, was found dead in her car on January 25th in Jackson, Mississippi, after her aunt reported that she'd been missing for 3 days. She had crashed into a utility pole after being shot. She was well known in her community as the mother of the House of Red and founder of Lady Red Incorporated. 50 Bands, 21, of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, was shot to death on January 28th by her domestic partner, who had previously threatened to kill her. You know, in 2020, 70% of trans and gender non-conforming people who died by violence died at the hands of a family member or intimate partner. And we just got done with January. That's sad. Alexis Braxton, also known as Kimmy Icon Braxton, was found dead in a Miami condo on February 4th. She was the daughter of a board member of Hollywood, Florida's LGBTQ Council. China Carrillo. Police were called February 18th to a house in New Wilmington where they found a man beating China with a blunt object. In fact, they had to kill the man to get him to stop. She was taken to a nearby hospital where she died of her injuries. She was only 24 years old. She was a certified nursing assistant at a local nursing home that was actually next to the house where she was attacked. She had moved to Pennsylvania from Arkansas in what she was hoping would be a positive change. She would have turned 25 on March 3rd. And her mother said, I'm going to be celebrating a birthday with an angel in heaven. This one's, I find particularly sad. Jeffrey J.J. Bright and Jasmine Kennedy. So Jeffrey was a 16-year-old trans boy, and Jasmine was 22 years old and his non-binary sibling. They died February 22nd after being shot in the head by their mother in their home. And according to the police, at least one of the children had begged her not to shoot them. Friends said that they had a complicated relationship with their mother. Jenna Franks, 34, was homeless, found dead in a creek near a bike trail in Jacksonville, North Carolina on February 24th. She died of multiple stab wounds. Her friends said she was a delight to be with. She was an amazing person, inside and out. And her friends just cannot fathom this happened to her. Ellen Evans, 24, was found murdered and dead in a canal in Port Arthur, Texas in March. She was transient, but her mother stated that she could always turn to family members for shelter. Her mom said, my child was loving, my child was very happy, my child lived her truth every day. Her mother also noted that she had been harassed for being trans and was even shot while walking with friends in 2017. Diamond Kyrie Sanders, 23, was shot to death during a robbery in Cincinnati on March 3rd. She was found at about 4 a.m. that day in the parking lot of an apartment building. She was taken to a nearby hospital but died shortly thereafter. Her family and friends remembered her fondly. Diamond was a ball of energy as a child, and even up to the time of her death. She valued her family and enjoyed spending time with them. As a child, she would say, I love my whole family. At the last family Thanksgiving dinner, she let her family know how thankful she was that they accepted her for who she was, including her trans identity. She loved traveling and fashion, and she had a unique style, and she had a personality that will be missed. Brianna Pardo, 26, was killed when she was struck by a car on the east side of LA on March 17th. Security video shows her being followed by a group of people down Eastern Avenue, and her family believes that she was being chased and she ran into the street to get away from harassers, or may have even been pushed. She often faced mistreatment like that, according to her family. The motorist who struck her was charged with DUI. Her mother said Brianna was such a beautiful young person who just wanted to live her life and be herself. A friend said, I can't even sleep. And her mother can't sleep either. She said, every time I close my eyes, I picture Brianna getting hit by a car. And so I stay awake. And her brother said, everyone should just love everybody. At the end of the day, that's all we have is one another. Jada Peterson, 29, was shot to death on April 4th at a room in a Quality Inn in Charlotte, North Carolina. A friend said, that was my first best friend, the first person I could ever talk to. I just can't believe something like this happened to my friend. She didn't deserve it. Her friend noted Peterson was always smiling and making jokes, and said, people just find it easier to kill us because socially we're at the bottom of the totem pole. No matter what her gender was, a human life was taken away, said her mother. She had a family and friends and people who loved her. Dominique Luscious, 26, was shot to death on April 8th in Springfield, Missouri. Dominique was killed in an apartment where she spent the night. She woke up the next morning, told the person whose apartment it was she needed to freshen up to prepare for a visitor she'd met online. And that is the person who killed her. Her cousin described Dominique as strong, brave, and big-hearted. She loved herself how she was, and that's what made everyone adore her. If she had red lipstick and red nails, she didn't care what you had to say about her. And I loved that so much about her. Remy Fennell, 28, was found fatally shot to death on April 15th at the Sleep Inn in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was originally from Hampton, Virginia, and had hoped to open a hair salon. Her aunt said she was a beautiful soul and very talented with hair. And her sisters planned to honor her by making the salon a reality. Her aunt also said, for every family out there, just love, no matter what. Love each other. Tahira Banks, 24, was shot to death in Chicago on April 24th. She was sitting alone in her car when someone walked up and shot her several times. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Tahira Deoto Valencia was 42, an activist and a legend in the Boston ballroom scene. She was stabbed to death on April 23rd in her own home. She had allowed a family with children to stay with her to get out of a bad situation. The husband killed Tahira and his wife. She was known as a community advocate, an anti-domestic violence activist, a mother figure, and a ballroom icon. She was famous in the Boston ballroom scene and had her own house, which is an important thing in the ballroom scene. She was a legend in the trans community. She was a mother to so many that didn't have parents. She took the most pride in her role as grandmother and a mother, a chosen family for many individuals of the queer community. She worked at the Elizabeth Freeman Center, which assists survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. Natalia Smooth, 24, was a beloved drag entertainer. She was stabbed to death on April 23rd, and her domestic partner was charged with her murder. She was stabbed multiple times at a home in Milpitas, California. She was a popular drag artist who performed frequently throughout the Bay Area, and she was described as a jewel of the community. Iris Santos, 22, was shot to death while sitting at a picnic table outside a Chick-fil-A in Houston on April 23rd. Surveillance video shows someone just walking up to her and shooting her from behind. Family didn't hear of her death for several days, and they were very concerned because they hadn't heard from her. That was unlike her. But yeah, several days after her death, we're finally told that she'd passed. Her mother said she was a beautiful soul. She was a wonderful person. She was always trying to help people. Even when she didn't have anything, she always gave. One of her middle school teachers said at her memorial service, We're going to find this person. They are not going to get away with this. Iris knew what she wanted in life and was not ashamed of who she was. Tiffany Thomas, 38, from Dallas. She was shot to death in a car wash on April 24th. She was dead named in some local reports, and her family denied that she was transgender. Kerry Washington, 49, of Clearwater, Florida, was found dead on May 1st in the back of her apartment building, having died of head trauma. Her domestic partner confessed to killing her. A relative said the relationship had often been violent. Kerry actually went by the nickname Bobo. Thomas Harden of York, South Carolina, was killed by his former romantic partner on May 2nd. Thomas identified as male, but continued to use the name Thomas and both male and female pronouns. Thomas's family and friends became concerned when they hadn't heard from her, and they called the police, who found her dead. Whispering Wind, Bear Spirit. 41-year-old non-binary Indigenous person was shot to death during an attempted robbery in York, Pennsylvania on May 3rd. 6 men entered the home where Whispering Wind was staying with friends. Police said the men were trying to recover a pound of marijuana that was stolen by them from a resident in the home. Whispering Wind was shot once in the torso while trying to stop the robbery, as a male resident was being beat. They died during surgery early in the morning of May 4th. Whispering Wind's social media said that they were Shawnee by birth and Potawatomi by relations. Sophie Vasquez, 36, was shot and killed in her apartment in Brookhaven, Georgia on May 4th. She'd been shot multiple times. Her friends remembered her as the kindest person on the planet and someone who lit up the whole room and made us laugh until we cried. Danny Henson, 31, who also went by Prince Daniel, was fatally shot in her home in Baltimore on May 4th. A friend called Danny just the embodiment of love, adding, "We all need to stop having all these Black men, Black women, Black trans people dying and no justice being found." Serenity Hollis, 24, was shot to death in Albany, Georgia on May 8th. She was killed while walking down the street. Local media, as well as police and prosecutors, misgendered and dead-named her. The police did release a video showing someone coming up from behind and shooting her in the back and then fleeing. One of her sisters believes that her death was either a hate crime or an act of revenge for some reason. She also stated that someone may have been offended by the way she carried herself. Another sister said that Serenity had been attacked before, having been stabbed multiple times at an Albany nightclub about 2.5 years previously. Her mother said, "The person that's responsible for this has no idea what they took from us. I absolutely want to see that justice is served." Poe Dylan Black, 21, is a trans man who was stabbed to death in California in May. His death was not reported until a month later, when the local sheriff's office put out a request for assistance with the investigation. Poe was a member of the Wyandot Nation. He was two-spirit and neurodivergent. Poe's body was found on May 11th near Slab City, which is in the desert close to California's border with Mexico. Poe went by the nickname Legion and had arrived there the previous winter from Nashville. According to a friend, Poe went to an arts-based high school and was a very talented visual artist. He loved to paint and draw. And he also liked storing things that he found at thrift stores. Poe was a strong activist. He was very involved in multiple Black Lives Matter protests. He was also involved in the LGBTQ movement. Oliver Taylor, 17, was abducted on May 12th near Gervais, Oregon. Police say that an adult male drove away in a pickup with Ollie, leading to a police chase and exchange of gunshots. When apprehended, the police found Ollie in the truck's front passenger seat and having suffered a life-threatening gunshot wound by his abductor. Ollie later died at a Portland hospital. He was involved in several activities while in high school, including the track team and Future Farmers of America. His family remembers Ollie as an amazing child with a quirky sense of humor who impacted so many people. Tahira Marie Lewis was shot to death in Cleveland on June 12th. She was found in a residential neighborhood when police responded to a report of gunfire. She'd been shot in the chest and died at a local hospital. She had been experiencing homelessness and had moved to Cleveland last year to break away from sex work and to recover from addiction. She stayed at various shelters, but experienced conflicts with people and blatant transphobia. Participants in Cleveland's trans wellness program remembered her fondly. They just respected her for the fact that she walked through so much, said a staffer, and she still shines such a light. She only gave kindness. A member of the group said she commanded attention. She was tall like me, and she was a spirited girl. One day she would have purple hair, one day pink hair, and always an outfit to go with those colors. E.J. Boykin, 23, who also went by the name Novio Watson, was shot on June 14th in Lynchburg, Virginia. He was found in a parking lot of a store about 6 p.m., was taken to a local hospital, where he died soon afterwards. Police believe that the shooting may have been related to a domestic dispute. A child was at the scene and was not harmed. A longtime friend said he was loved and liked by everyone. He was one of those people that just had good vibes and energy. Taya Ashton, 20, was shot to death on June 17th in her apartment in Suitland, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C. Police found her shortly before 10 p.m. She had suffered a single gunshot wound and was pronounced dead at the scene. Her intimate partner was charged with her murder. Shea Vanderpump, 23, was a trans activist in Trenton, New Jersey, and was shot to death on July 30th. At about 4:40 a.m. that day, police responded to a report of a shooting at a residence. They found her, she had been shot in the face. She was taken to a hospital and she was pronounced dead shortly afterwards. Miss Coco, 44, was shot to death on August 7th at a homeless encampment in downtown Dallas. She was a master cosmetologist. Her full name was Coco Chanel Worthman. She was originally from Kansas City, Kansas, and was described as a well-known small town girl with a big bubbly personality, who was a happy person and was proud to be living her truth. She was a kind, giving person who never said no to anyone. Poe Johnson was shot to death in Shreveport, Louisiana on August 23rd. She was found dead in a vehicle at about 5:30 in the morning, having been shot several times. She was a makeup artist who worked under the name of Titanizer Mua. Zoella Martinez, a Seattle resident and 20 years old. She was found fatally shot in an alley on September 1st. She'd gone out the night before to meet someone who she alleged had fraudulently withdrawn over $1,000 from her bank account. She had arranged for a friend to be nearby when she met the individual in a parking lot. When the friend arrived, she saw Zoella sitting in a car with another person at the wheel. The driver sped off, and when Zoella didn't return to the lot to get her own car, the friend reported her missing. The next morning, police found her in an alley next to a fire station with 5 gunshot wounds. Desea Monai, 27, was shot to death on September 6th in a motel in Dalton, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. Her mother said her daughter was at the hotel with some women friends, but was tired and decided to stay in the room while the others went out. When they returned, they found her dead, and there were clear signs of struggle at the hotel room door. Her mother said Desea, who transitioned after leaving high school, was happy, outgoing, and well-loved. Mom said, I used to have to tell her all the time when she was little that she can't keep taking care of everyone, but she just couldn't stop. She explained to me that a lot of the trans girls she hung out with didn't have family because their family disowned them. So she made sure I fed her friends and she'd take them in like a family. Brianna Ulner, 25, was shot to death on a sidewalk in Chicago on September 17th. She was found in the alley early that morning with a gunshot wound to the head and was pronounced dead in a local hospital. Her mother wrote, I know Brianna was loved by many, calling her daughter an amazing person and ending with the hashtag Trans Lives Matter. Her older sister said, wherever she went, if I wanted to go, she would take me with her. She was my first best friend. She was fun to be around and was the life of the party, said a friend. She was always full of life and was honest, loyal, and authentic. You don't meet people as special as her every day. Tahira Solomon, 21, was found fatally shot in her car at an apartment complex in Arlington, Texas on September 30th. She lived with her grandmother in Dallas and was between jobs. Her mother said, right now I'm just trying to understand, to figure out why. Tahira was very loved and loved a lot of people. There's no reason for this to have happened. Mel Groves, 25, died on October 11th in Jackson, Mississippi. He'd been shot multiple times and drove himself to the hospital where he collapsed getting out of his vehicle. He was transferred to the University of Mississippi Medical Center where he died. He had previously expressed fear for his life because he was living trans in Jackson. Mel was studying plant and soil science at Alcorn State University. He cared about everything, especially plants. Mel was a brilliant student, but had been rejected by his family and sometimes experienced homelessness. A colleague stated, imagine how much he could have contributed to technology, to science, to agriculture, if he had been stable and if he actually had a chance. Royal Poetical Stars, 26, was shot in broad daylight on October 2nd as she sat in her Hummer in a residential area of Miami, or just Florida. The police misgendered and dead-named her. She had been shot multiple times, including in the face. Royal, who had been widowed 2 years previously, had been struggling financially. She worked as a masseuse and had recently received a business degree. She was also a singer. Friends said she was always the life of the party. Whenever we walked on Wilton Avenue to the next bar, everyone loved how she was dressed. Jessie Hart, 42, had experienced poverty and housing insecurity. She was found dead in Banks, Oregon on October 17th. Jessie experienced housing insecurity since her transition in 2016. She lost her construction business, her home, and had become estranged from most of her family due to her transition. Jessie and her 13-year-old son, Caleb, had bounced from a women's shelter to a friend's apartment to hotels. Her and her son had a close and supportive relationship. Jessie's girlfriend, Audrey Savage, said, "I missed everything about her. She was intelligent and thoughtful and caring. I loved her quirks. The whole shorts with the knee-high socks added to the stretch pants thing. She also took almost all my hats. When they found her, Jessie had her camouflage hat." Joe Acker, 26, was a security guard who was killed when a gunman opened fire at the Boise Town Square Mall in Idaho on October 25th. Joe confronted the shooter on the first floor near a department store and was shot and died at the scene. Confronting someone who she believed to be a threat to others or a bully was entirely within her character, even prior to enlisting, said her oldest sister. Joe served in the Army as a forward artillery observer and a paratrooper. Ricky Altnumero, 39, was a trans activist and a drag performer, was found dead on a street in Centralia, Washington on October 31st. She had been shot 5 times in the chest by her domestic partner. She was well known as a drag performer and had performed all through the area and was the first Miss Day Lewis County in 2008. An LGBTQ activist said, "I've known her since she was little. Ricky and her best friend would go to the neighborhood food co-op and play dress-up drag queen near the free box to the delight of the co-op owners, often doing little drag shows." Jenny De Leon, 25, was found dead outside of home in Tampa, Florida on November 2nd. Her sister said she was a wonderful person with a beautiful soul who touched the lives of those around her. Jenny had come out and transitioned while attending P-Flag Tampa meetings. Marquisha Cui Lawrence, 28, was found shot to death in her home on November 4th in Greenville, South Carolina. Family members found her body. The coroner's office believes that she was in an altercation with one or more people, which led to her death. She was a free thinker and loved by many. And she will be remembered for her infectious smile and her gold. She loved to cook because she said it filled the belly and fed the heart. So now I'd like to have Sherry Martin come up and speak for a few moments about Mom Hugs group.
Hi, I'm Sherry Martin. I'm the state chapter leader for Free Mom Hugs Iowa. Sarah Cunningham began her journey of becoming an advocate of the LGBTQ community through her relationship with her gay son. She founded Free Mom Hugs in 2014. In 2018, Sarah posted a message to her social media accounts that read, PSA, if you need a mom to attend your same-sex wedding because your biological mom won't, she wrote, call me. I'm there. I'll be your biggest fan, and I'll even bring the bubbles. She had no idea that her post would go viral and that there would soon be a Free Mom Hugs chapter in every state and eventually in 2 other countries. Since then, moms and dads around the world have supported the LGBTQ community by standing in at weddings, speaking to GSA groups, educating the public, showing up for pride events, baking cookies, and by giving hugs.
Thank you, Sherry. And locally, the Mom Hugs group has shown up. They baked a lot of cookies for Sioux Pride events. We do events, several of them just for youth. And yeah, they always show up, cookies, cupcakes, whatever they ask. They work our events. They really are a big help